Welcome back to Inside the Pylon, a Midwest college football podcast, joined as always by Clinton Boring. My name is Ryan Satkoviak. That was almost an all-time hot mic moment, Clinton, sir. How are you doing tonight?
I'm irritated, man. The Bengals just find new ways to piss me off every single week, and I don't even know why I have this game on while we record this podcast because I need to watch my mouth throughout the recording. It just infuriate me. Other than that, it was a good weekend. College football day yesterday. We had a good time. Lots of good college football. A lot of solid matchups throughout the day. Pretty happy with that. How are you today?
Oh, just happy to be here, man. What did we do this weekend? We had Friendsgiving this weekend, so I did not watch a whole lot of football. There's some football, but not as much as normal, which is fine. You should be social sometimes on Saturdays, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that. We have more YouTube issues. I think we're live on YouTube. I'm pretty sure we're live on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed to that feed at ITPCFB, where you can watch us live every Sunday, Monday, and Thursday night at 9 p.m. And as always, if you would prefer to listen to us in your preferred podcast platform, we are on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your shows. We are at Inside the Pylon, a Midwest college football podcast there. Make sure you are subscribed to that feed so you can get notified whenever we drop an episode and you never miss one of these joyous occasions that we have or something like that. In my getting all rattled for not going live on YouTube again, I completely lost the AP top 25 list that came out. So let me find that here real quick. We have a new top 6 to 10 at least.
It's just all SEC teams.
It is all SEC teams. It is, Clinton, it is an entirely Big Ten SEC top 10, except for Notre Dame.
Dude, you had it right. They're setting it up to make sure they get 5 teams in.
This is really annoying me. I just Google it. No, I don't want to Google it. Your top 5 remains unchanged from last week. You have the Ohio State, or no, that's Oregon.
Jesus.
Dude, I pulled up a recruiting. Jesus Christ, I'm just gonna friggin' Google this. I had it up on Twitter and then it disappeared. This is terrible radio. I apologize for this. Oregon remains at number 1 after a exceptionally close call this weekend. We will talk about that here in a little bit. Ohio State, number 2. Texas struggles with Arkansas, but they remain at number 3. By the way, Oregon, a unanimous number 1 in the AP poll. They got all 62 first place votes. Penn State stays at 4. Indiana stays at 5 after an idle week last week. Big movers of the weekend coming up next here. Notre Dame jumps 2 spots, sits at number 6. Alabama up 2 spots, number 7. Georgia jumps back into the top 10, up 3 spots at number 8. Ole Miss at number 9. Tennessee falls down to number 10. Miami at 11. Boise State at 12. SMU at 13. And BYU falls like a rock, Clinton, down to 14 after losing to Kansas.
A space rock. Too. They fell so far from space to Earth.
Called that one
crash landing.
Told you as soon as they lost, they were going to drop them like a ton of bricks, and they sure did.
They're now Big 12 is getting 1 team in and 1 team only.
Yep, that was best case scenario for Indiana, Tennessee, Georgia, and Notre Dame. Everyone back in there is you're not going to have a bid stealer from the Big 12 because there's only going to be 1.
And then good news for Boise. They won, and they're ahead of the Big 12 champ right now.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see what happens in the Big 12 because I don't know, man. They who did they beat? Oh, they beat Washington State, and Washington State lost this weekend, so they lost their only ranked win. So,
wait a second. Washington State ended up losing to New Mexico?
Yes.
That's comical. Well, Washington State's out now. Might as well kiss that one goodbye. They weren't in before, but
yeah, I saw like 1 or 2 chaos scenarios. That was, well, what if Washington State wins out? They're not going to make it. Well, now they're definitely not going to make it.
God, that's nuts.
But I'm curious to see what ends up happening with whoever ends up winning the Big 12. If BYU ends up winning out, or if Colorado wins out, if they end up jumping Boise, because you're absolutely right. As things stand right now, Boise would be your 4 seed. And the whoever gets the 5 seed would end up playing Colorado or BYU or Arizona State, even in the
what a gorgeous 5-12 matchup setup that would be.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to play Colorado. Well, I'd play Colorado right now.
I would, because their trenches still suck.
That should be an easy win for. I mean, their defensive line's playing better, but that should still be an easy win if you're. I mean, if you're the 5 seed, you're basically a number 3 the loser of the Big Ten or the SEC title game.
Yeah.
Maybe not the SEC title game, but anyway, yeah, the back half of the top 10 now is Notre Dame and a bunch of SEC teams. So I was kind of fascinated to see how that would shake out. I cannot believe that Georgia jumped Ole Miss in the AP poll. So we'll see what the committee's rankings look like on Tuesday night. Some news from around Big Ten land. Wisconsin fired their offensive coordinator.
Phil Longo.
Phil Longo.
Paul
Longo
no
is the old
longer
Notre Dame strength
part
coach.
of their team.
The Dairy Raid is no more. Felt kind of scapegoaty, but something really had to happen there. It's not necessarily his fault that he had to play 2 seasons with a backup quarterback, but you're not getting better. Your offense lost you the game last night. I mean, I hate to say it, but we'll talk
your
about
defense,
that in a little bit.
Well, yeah, I
Defense
don't want to start. We'll get there. Yes, you had every reason that you should have won that game last night. Oregon played horrible, outside of a few players, and then I don't know. Should have had it.
Called it though.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Called it. Told you that Wisconsin was going to cover.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything else till we get to the game.
Yes, let's we'll go chronological order. We'll start Friday night. The ridiculous home road splits for the Washington Huskies, Clinton, continue. They win 31-19. They are now 6-0 at home this year. 2 late-ish fourth quarter touchdowns for the Huskies, and this one took this to its final score. Look, close game for most of the game. UCLA played pretty well again. They got a late touchdown drive to take this from 31-13 to the final score there. They outgained Washington in this game, but they could not establish a running game. I think they ended up with like 57 rushing yards as a team. Story of this game.
Harden had 33, but he did lead them in receiving yards, which that's interesting.
Big story of this game for the Bruins, Clinton, was 2 fumbles that came at inopportune spots. The first of 2 came midway through the second quarter after a Washington turnover on downs gave them the ball at the Washington 44-yard line. They're down 7-3 at this time. And then in the second half, Will Rogers throws 2 interceptions to start the second half for Washington, gets benched after the second interception. They fumbled again after getting into the red zone. And that was kind of the difference in this one. Clinton, Damon Williams comes in at the end of the midway through the third quarter. He leads a field goal drive, 2 touchdown drives. He goes 7 of 8 for 67 yards, a touchdown, 31 yards on the ground. He opened up the running game a little bit more for Jonah Coleman in this one. Coleman had 11 carries for 55 yards after Damon Williams went into the game. So I'm fascinated to see Clinton in their last game of the season if they end up making the switch full time. And is it officially Damon Williams time for the Washington Huskies?
I might as well not mention anything that I summarized this game because I think you just read my entire sheet. In addition to the 6-0 at home this year, they have won now 20 straight home games. They are bowl eligible, so that's huge. You mentioned the close game throughout. Garbers played well again, no INTs. You mentioned the fumble. UCLA Run D had a tougher time defending this week against Coleman. He finished 95 yards and 2 TDs. Held him under 100, but I feel like they've been doing even better than that against the most recent backs they faced. The 2 picks for the night for the Bruins defense was great, but they only had 1 sack. So you did get 2 interceptions, but not much pressure on the quarterback. UCLA, on the flip side, you mentioned the run game. They were held to 1.6 yards per carry in this game. If it wasn't for Garbers being a magician on third down, converting 10 of 19 third downs in this game might have been worse than what it was. And not saying it was worse to begin with, but could have been worse. How about that? And that was my note here. Should the Huskies just make the full-time switch to Damon Williams? You already mentioned he replaced him. He led, I believe, 3 scoring drives for Washington in the second half. You know, overall, the pass game wasn't great to begin with a majority of that work going to Will Rogers. They had 182 yards passing against a bottom-tier pass defense. They're 97th now. I don't know if they were in the hundreds prior to this game.
I think they were 115, maybe.
Yeah. So again, props to the Washington Huskies defense. So Russell Davis II had 3 sacks on the night and 1 fumble recovery, and their entire defense had 6 sacks total. So good performance out of Washington, as we expected. I believe we both hit this one, right? We both took Washington.
Yep.
as expected, they were home. Now they do have a road game, but at least it's not cross country this time. It's a familiar foe against Oregon. Both teams get a bye week, which I think you could argue for Oregon is coming at a great time.
Yep.
Washington's going to have better offensive play in that game to be able to beat Oregon. And then UCLA, you're fighting for bowl eligibility, and your final two are USC and Fresno State. I think Fresno State is the more winnable game, but we'll talk about USC here shortly. But I think USC is very much a winnable game for them and finish off strong. When we left them for dead, saying they were likely a 1-win Big Ten team this year, and they might get themselves to a bowl game.
I like the casual. At least it's not a cross-country road trip for your last road game. You're just playing the number one team in the country. Who they have won 3 straight games against, but that might as well have been 6
different team
ago. Yeah, different team.
Dan Lanning has a mental block with the Huskies.
Maybe. I guess we'll find out in a couple of weeks.
If they lose again, can you imagine what's going to happen with that?
If they lose, would they miss the title game?
I don't know. We don't know the scenarios with that, because then Penn State would have 1 loss, Ohio State would have 1, and Oregon would have 1. I don't know what that would shake out.
Or if Indiana beats Ohio State, then you just have a total.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you argue, I don't know, if you get to the scenario of better loss, which I hate, Oregon would have lost to Washington and Penn State to Ohio State. So would you leave Oregon out? Like, I don't know if it's happening.
I don't know what the tiebreaker scenario would be.
Yeah,
because you'd have Penn State, Oregon, and Ohio State would all have 1 Big Ten loss. So you don't have any common opponent. There's no head-to-head because it's like the round robin.
Yeah, there's no head-to-head for Penn State, at least. The other
because it's because if it's Ohio State beat Penn State, but Ohio State lost to Oregon, you can't use the head-to-head in that scenario.
Yep. So you'd have to go to the next one. So I don't know. I don't want to be in that scenario. How about Ohio State just wins out and Oregon wins out, and we get the Big Ten championship game we all want to see?
Yeah, I don't really want to see Penn State in the Big Ten title game, because then I'd have to see them on the road against an SEC team in the first round of the playoff, and we know how that's going to go.
And no offense, I don't want to see Indiana there, because that means they beat Ohio State, which is going to piss me off. But I would be rooting for Indiana. I think that'd be pretty cool. America's team in the Big Ten title.
In Indianapolis, that would be a fun time.
I don't know if Oregon would get a single seat in that stadium.
No, I guarantee. I mean, they did get some, but there'd be a lot of Indiana fans.
They're supposed to sell them 50-50, but I can tell you, having been there numerous times, it doesn't end up 50-50.
No, for sure. So, yeah, we'll be following the UCLA-USC game closely. There's a lot on the line for both teams in that one. Moving on to the other team we were just talking about, Ohio State 31, Northwestern 7. This one, Clinton, looked early like it was going to be an adventure for Ohio State. Northwestern's first 2 drives, they went 11 plays, 59 yards, took 7 minutes off the clock, and then fumbled it. Mm-hmm. Ohio State drove to the 40-yard line, Will Howard threw a dime. He was dealing in this one to Jeremiah Smith, called a touchdown originally, overturned. They end up punting it. Then Northwestern goes 13 plays, 92 yards, takes another 5:30 off the clock, scores a touchdown. 7-0 at this point. It's midway through the second quarter. I'm like, boy, is Northwestern going to do this thing today? And then their last 6 drives, they totaled 100 yards. This one was over after their third drive ended with a 3-and-out and a snap over the punter's head, who slowly approached the ball, turned around, actually made a pretty good move to get around one guy and then punted it directly into another guy.
Pathetic by the Ohio State defensive end. Pathetic.
Once that happened, I'm like, yeah, this one is over. And Ohio State scored on their next 5 possessions and then kind of took their foot off the gas, which I would too. So I don't know if you had any grand takeaways from this one, but this very much looked like we took care of business early, we coasted late, and no one got hurt.
Yeah. Actually, Jeremiah Smith did get hurt. Ankle. The Northwestern player twisted his ankle intentionally on the tackle. I mean, it's pretty clear as day, although you could argue then, why did we put him back out on the field and have starters out there with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter? I don't know. Judkins, better day, 76 yards. Got that yards per carry up to 5.1. He had 2 TDs, which ultimately was my undoing in the college fantasy and getting the 1 seed. Henderson, 74 yards, 6.7 yards per carry. Carnell Tate, homecoming. It's been a big 2 years for Carnell Tate. He's from Chicago. His mother was murdered in Chicago last fall. So awesome homecoming for him. Ohio State kind of made him the focus of the offense. 2 TDs. Smith, another 100 yards. Their run game took some time. They finally got it going. 118 of the 173 were all in the second half. They didn't have the most efficient, pretty fourth quarter, which I think is why Day was lingering those guys out there and trying to get something. But at this point, you're playing for bigger things than trying to get 38-7 against Northwestern. You already mentioned it. Northwestern, nice opening 2 drives. The Lausch fumble killed him on the first drive. Lausch threw for 201 and ran for 44 and had the rushing TD. So he played fairly solid. Mm-hmm. Although I think most of his action was early versus late.
Yep.
He was sacked 4 times. So Ohio State continues to show mixing up pressures and different ways to get to the quarterback. However, they probably should have had more because Jack Sawyer, for some reason, is like it's like 2 magnets. When he gets to the quarterback, they just repel each other. Because he can't tackle a quarterback. I don't know what it is. It's pretty sad. And then they held Cam Porter to 37 yards on 10 carries. I know on the Solid Verbal, I was listening to their follow-up today, and they're like, yeah, Cam Porter had a nice day. I'm like, what are you talking about? He had 37 yards on 10 carries. It's 3.7 yards a carry. It was not a nice day. But overall, Ohio State gets through it. I would imagine Jeremiah Smith's going to be fine heading into the next week. He'll get unlimited rehab to make sure there is no swelling left in that ankle for Saturday. Moving on to Indiana. That is the only thing that matters at this point. Shout out Indiana, by the way, paying Kirk Cignetti $8 million to stay on. And we'll see if this deal works out any better than Mel Tucker's.
Oh, yeah, that happened so long ago that I completely forgot that happened.
So you want to know something interesting? Michigan State handed out that deal to Mel Tucker the week before they played Ohio State, and they lost 49-0.
Well, the one that I saw that I was kind of thinking of too is what could go wrong giving a head coach to an Indiana college a fat extension halfway through his first year when he hasn't won anything. A la Charlie Weiss.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway,
I feel like it's different.
Sure this one
we'll see this Saturday.
I'm sure this one will go better. Maybe, probably. Well, speaking of Mel Tucker, ish. How about that segue? Illinois 38, Michigan State 16. I am not going to lie, Clinton. I had to kind of watch the highlights of this one because this did not make it onto the TV at Friendsgiving. So I thought I was seeing some stuff on Twitter about like, is Aiden Childs ever going to like grow as a player because he's now halfway through his eligibility clock in theory, and like there were just people talking about it. It doesn't seem like he's getting better. And I mean, if you look at his stat line, he wasn't bad.
No turnovers.
No turnovers. He was 23 of 40, 256 yards, 2 touchdowns. So I don't know. Maybe you can fill in the blanks.
He also led the team with 40 rushing yards. He had a good game. Yeah, people were bashing him for it. You're asking a first-time starting quarterback to throw the ball 40-something times to win you a game. Like, my God, you couldn't do anything else. Your defense didn't help enough.
No, yeah, I think part of it too was so they score to open the second half. It's 21-16. Illinois gets a field goal, and then they go 3 and out, 3 and out, and 3 and out. And then it's 31-16. You turn the ball over on downs deep in your own territory. Well, I guess not deep in your own territory, just at midfield. And then Illinois scores to kind of put the game away. So I don't know.
Yeah. I think the big thing is the Spartan defensive problem, right? There is no, this is Sparta, because it's not. They had 0 sacks. That's 6 straight games now, Ryan, that Michigan State hasn't had a sack.
That's not
They're having to play with a younger secondary due to injuries. Malik Spencer, who is, I believe, safety, and Charles Brantley, DB, injured against Indiana, and they're likely out for the season. So, you know, I labeled it as Big Day McCray, having 3 touchdowns and 2 to ice it in the fourth, 135 yards for a career high for Mr. Pat Bryant. He had 1 TD, which got him to 8 on the season. Illinois now finishes the year 6-1 at home. That is the first time they've won 6 home games since 2001. the same year that they won the Big Ten title and played in the Sugar Bowl. The biggest thing that left remains for Illinois is, can you go 9-3? Your last two games, Rutgers and Northwestern, both on the road.
Mm-hmm.
We have a resurgent Rutgers team who
Rutgers
has come
is
back
back.
alive.
Rutgers is back.
And we have Northwestern generally pegged about where we thought, 4 to 6 win range. They're sitting at 4 wins. So it's not a gimme. You're going to play at Wrigley, which outside of the weird little hump that was in the field, that was a very beautiful field that Ohio State played at on Saturday. I just still prefer to have football played in football stadiums. But Michigan State, you have Purdue and Rutgers left. You have to have both to become bowl eligible. You cannot dare be the team that gives Purdue their only Big Ten win. Cannot happen.
Mm-mm.
And then you better pull something special out for Rutgers. But for Childs, the talk on him, I'll let it simmer a little bit more. Like, the kid's still not only starting for the first time this year, but playing in the Big Ten is a lot different than maybe what would have happened in the Pac-12 if it still existed. They still need some players around him. I noticed, I don't know, how well is Nick Marshman doing? I haven't really seen much stat lines for him. He didn't score in this game. The other receivers did.
Yeah, he had 4 for 53.
And I think a lot of it, too, is a quarterback can only do so much. If your defense isn't going to get stops, if other players aren't going to make plays, they're not Patrick Mahomes. So it's going to be tough. But I hope Michigan State can – I think I might have picked them to be 6 and get a bowl game. So I'm going to need them to win the final 2 games.
Speaking of Purdue, Penn State 49, Purdue 10. Congratulations, Penn State. You will not be relegated from the Big Ten because you covered and made me some money. We're at the point with Purdue, man, that I don't think that there's anything that you can extrapolate from playing them because they are just bad. They're a bad football team.
I have one thing for you. The Boilermakers routed again, which pretty much sums up this entire season. It's just been a rout of all sorts all year long. That's all I got for Purdue. They had one really nice play. Apparently, there was a touchdown. They got called back because the receiver thought he tapped his foot, but the end zone, line and grass were painted the same colors. So he thought he was inbounds, but he wasn't. Oh, yeah. So then that gets wiped.
It was like he was standing right behind the pylon, and it was like just all black, but they painted it white. Like just the white out of bounds line. Like I've never seen an end zone design like that.
Well, you know what you're supposed to do, son? You're supposed to be inside the pylon. Just saying.
He was there. You go. He broke the fourth wall. I have the ESPN thing pulled up, and it's literally the video is a still shot of him just standing there, and it's poor guy.
It's just a representation of their entire season, man. It's so bad. Yeah. So
it's
bad.
Like when you'd see like White Sox highlights from this year, and it was just like a pop fly into right field, and the shortstop, second baseman, and right fielder all converge on it, and they all just run into each other. I'm like, this is how you lost 130 games this year.
But Penn State, I mean, they were fine. The defense didn't force any turnovers. They only had 3 sacks. You would think in a game like this, they would have done more, made a bit more plays. Here's where I want to get to my concern, Ryan, and I want you to eventually answer this question for me. Let's talk Singleton and Allen first. They only combined for 60 yards for the 234 yards Penn State had on the ground. You have Drew Aller, who started 10 for 10, 247, 3 TDs on the day. Let's get to Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren, leading rusher and receiver in this game, 63 yards rushing, 1 rushing touchdown, 8 for 127 and 1 TD receiving. Is it concerning at all that Penn State has a Tyler Warren problem? Like, does this concern you at all, Ryan, for when they go into the playoffs and a team who has someone like a Caleb Downs can just erase him from the game, and then Penn State's going to get trounced? Added to the fact that they still get down inside the red zone, put Prabula in instead of using Aller, who is the more premier option and top quarterback on this team, and you take him off the field. But I think Penn State has a Warren problem. I think they're trying to showcase him too much, and they don't have enough skill set anywhere else.
I mean, I don't really know how to answer that because on the one hand, you want to use your best players. That's fine. I do understand the concern in terms of like, in a game like this, you would prefer that you don't need to run Tyler Warren out of the Wildcat to pick up yards against Purdue. Like, this was because it's like the standing theory being like you're playing the team you should beat the crap out of, so just kind of work on stuff that you're not good at in a game situation, but that's how you lose a game to Northern Illinois. Like that's literally what Notre Dame did in that game. They did not. You will never be able to convince me that they actually had a game plan in that game. It looked like their thought process was, oh, we're just going to work on the deep pass and we're going to see what happens because we should complete one or two and we'll be fine. And then your quarterback throws a ill-advised deep ball that he overshoots the wide receiver by 13 yards and throws an interception with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter when you're down by 2 points or up by 1 point. So I don't know, man. On the one hand, win your games, get good at lean into your strengths. On the other hand, I mean, we kind of saw it with the Ohio State game this year. Tyler Warren, I mean, he wasn't invisible. He still was really their most consistent thing in that game too, with more so out of the run than the pass. But it is a little concerning that they still don't really have a consistent guy that they can go to out wide. And I mean, that's not just a them problem too. Like you can look at a couple other teams like Notre Dame doesn't have that guy that they consistently go to out wide. I don't think that Georgia necessarily has that guy that they can consistently go to out wide either. So I don't know, man. Win your games however you can, I guess, and hope for the best.
Yeah, it concerns me when they get to playoffs, man. We talked about it preseason. Is this the year Penn State needs to get it done? Well, they look like they have, barring they trip against Minnesota this week. And boy, I don't even want to know how far Penn State would fall if they lost to Minnesota this week. Like they might be on the cusp of being out of the playoff.
I think they
with as many SEC teams that they want in there.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think because we've seen now, I mean, we saw them drop Georgia like a ton of bricks last week, but I think that was more so because they felt like they had to put Georgia behind Ole Miss and they weren't ready to put Ole Miss above Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look at like Miami, I guess would be a more apt comparison. They went from like 3-9, losing to Georgia Tech, who I think would be a comparable-ish team to Minnesota, probably. So probably drop 4-10. But then again, that's like we talked about. You're kind of in that questionable danger zone being number 10 because, well, you already know that there's going to be two teams from outside the top 12 likely that are stealing a bid from you. So kind of on the bubble then. And I think that if you look at especially that dearth of 2-loss SEC teams, they all have at least one big win. Penn State doesn't have that. Right now, their resume is being bolstered by Ohio State and losing a close game there. If you lose a game to a team like, no offense, Minnesota, but you lose to a team that's 6-4 right now, that's not going to look super great. Not with 2 weeks left in the regular season. If you do that week 1, week 2, week 3, that's something that can be looked past, and excused a little bit. But you do that with 2 weeks left in the regular season, then you can't be sitting there making any arguments like, well, we're playing our best football right now. No, you're not.
Yep.
That would be I don't think it'll happen, but that would be fascinating to see what would happen.
No, because that is the absolute doorway into 5 or 6 SEC teams getting in. Penn State, you cannot lose. Please, 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 please do not lose another game. I think Ohio State's the only Big Ten team that can lose in the remainder of this season and still get in. I'm iffy on Indiana right now if they lose, if they're still in.
I mean, it depends how they lose. Lose.
It's got to be close. I think if it's double digits, 14 or more, I think they're in trouble.
I wouldn't even say double digits necessarily because you can like Tennessee lost by 14, and I wouldn't necessarily say they got their ass kicked in that game. That was a close game for 3.5 quarters, and then Georgia gets a window dressing touchdown late to make it 14. So, I mean, it all depends on context. If it's a 14-point game where Indiana's getting the shit kicked out of them, and then they get a garbage time touchdown with 2 minutes left, then it's like, okay, whatever. That's not great. But speaking of garbage time touchdowns with 2 minutes left, West Virginia, Notre Dame 35, Virginia 14. I've never been more angry, Clinton, watching Notre Dame beat the shit out of a team than I was during this game. This was the weirdest game that I've ever seen from an offensive standpoint and an officiating standpoint. There was some absolutely god-awful, atrocious officiating in this game. So this one starts, this was kind of a nice little unfortunate full circle moment for West Virginia wide receiver Chris Tyree, who started as a running back turned wide receiver at Notre Dame. He muffed a kickoff in the Cincinnati game in 2021 that the Bearcats turned into a touchdown and ended up playing a role in losing Notre Dame that game. He muffed the opening kickoff in this game, gift wrapping Notre Dame an early touchdown. And then after that, Clinton, Notre Dame went more than an entire quarter without getting a first down. They went 3 and out on 4 consecutive drives. But fortunately for them, their defense was not letting
Ryan, let me fill you in. So Notre Dame scored their first touchdown. And between the two teams, it was punt, turnover and downs, punt, fumble, then touchdown.
Yes.
Notre Dame went from 13:04 left in the first quarter until 6:34 left in the second quarter before they scored their second touchdown.
Yep. It was a disgusting performance of offense, but West Virginia did as well.
You really want to call them West Virginia?
Jesus Christ. Somehow, despite that, Notre Dame was up 28-0 at halftime, and this was despite some absolutely. So what happened in this game? There was one play where Virginia punted it. Notre Dame's returner called for a fair catch. It bounced off his chest plate and straight up into the air, and the Virginia defender recovered it, which it's not a live ball yet. The returner, since he called for a fair catch, is allowed to complete the process of the catch. So that was incorrectly ruled a fumble. Then, I don't remember if it was the next series or 2 series later, they had the most ridiculous fake punt that I've ever seen that was called back for an illegal formation. And I still don't understand the rule and how they were trying to explain it. It was called back because since somebody was lined up behind the center, they needed 5 people on the line between the numbers of 50 and 79, which how the fuck do you know that rule, but you don't know the punt rule? That is so ridiculous that I cannot even fathom that you know that rule, but not something that would actually happen in a football game. I was speechless. I still don't understand it. That is gross incompetence.
My only thing I got for you out of this, man, is
also they got it wrong. They got it wrong. They called it an illegal formation because they said he was under center, and he wasn't under center. He was a fucking yard behind the center.
Hey, what did I say though on Thursday that you can pronounce his name? UVA's quarterback, turnover.
Calandria. He got benched at halftime. He couldn't stop throwing picks.
5 turnovers forced in this game. Now I have my piece for Notre Dame with you, Ryan. Let's talk about Notre Dame's slow starts again.
Yeah, it's not great. It is not great.
I think you guys are in a world of trouble in the playoff if you come out here and do this. Because Notre Dame is going to draw, most likely, I feel like, a really tough matchup.
Yep. It will likely
the first game.
It will likely be a home game against an SEC team, the way that
you are going to have to score against Tennessee. Defense might be good enough to beat. I don't know, dude. That defensive line is filthy. They are filthy.
Clinton.
I don't think Notre Dame
offense is bad. Clinton, Tennessee was complaining about it being cold yesterday. It was 55 degrees. They're not going to come out of the locker room.
Let's switch it then. You're going to have to score to beat Ole Miss.
That's true. I don't want to play Ole Miss. Ole Miss is legitimately scary right now.
They have a phenomenal D-line. Jackson Dart is a really good quarterback. They got receivers everywhere. They can't continue to do this, or they're going to get clipped in their first playoff game.
I don't like you. So usually it's been the defense that just inexplicably gives up a long. We talked about this last week, that they'll inexplicably give up a long drive on the first possession of the game and then shut it down, and that did not happen in this game. The defense was elite from the top. Even West Virginia's, so their last touchdown came in garbage time.
Virginia.
Did I say West Virginia? God damn it.
Yes.
Virginia, their last touchdown came in garbage time with walk-on seniors in because it was senior day. Their only other touchdown there was a 40-yard pass that the receiver dropped. It hit the ground and bounced up to him, and they didn't review it. What are we doing? It was, I was ranting and raving at that point. It was 35-0 at that point.
So we had 4 TVs up, and I had this game on briefly, and then Calandria kept throwing passes to Notre Dame. Get this shit off my television. This isn't even worth watching. Yes. Ryan will have the complete summary for me tomorrow.
No, they benched him. They benched him at halftime. They put in a guy named Tony Muskett.
What a name. Muskett.
The British are coming. Tony Muskett.
He
threw a deep ball, and his receiver dropped it, and it bounced right back up to him, and they did not review it. I don't know if they called it a catch and a fumble, or they just decided that they were not going to review it because it was a 35-0 game. But anyway, it's like 4th and 2 then, and he runs it in from 19 yards and is taunting the crowd while he's running it. I'm like, homie, you are down 35-0. What the fuck are you doing?
Well,
like,
you know,
look at the score.
You gotta get your moment of fame when you can,
I guess. But no, like, so I don't know if like the offensive game plan when they're playing these teams that they know that they're going to beat the crap out of is just, we're just going to run into the line and see what happens and know that you're not going to stop us for 4 quarters and our defense isn't going to let you score. So we're just going to do this. And if that's going to change when they're playing, because if they do that against Army next week, they're in trouble, because Army is not like, Army is the traditional Navy option team where they will go on a 10.5-minute touchdown drive on you and limit you to 6 possessions in a game. And you can't have inefficient drives against that defense. Yeah. By the way, a top 5 defense in the country in yards per game allowed. I get the competition hasn't been great, but they held North Texas down a couple weeks ago. North Texas had pretty good offense this year.
Yep. Is that game at Notre Dame?
No, it's at Yankee Stadium.
Another freaking baseball game.
Lord. So I'm choosing to believe that it's a product of who they're playing, and they're just being stubborn about like, hey, we're just going to pound your face in because eventually it's going to pay off. And it did in this game. Like at one point, I think it was the 35-0 touchdown. Jeremiah Love went straight through the line and then just ran past everyone. It was an 80-yard touchdown. It was very nice touchdown run. But yeah, you're not going to be able to do that against SEC teams. Like, that's just, their defensive lines are too good. So I am sure that it'll be more kind of like a game plan that they did against Texas A&M, which, I mean, wasn't pretty. You scored 23 points, but also you allowed 13. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of this team still, because of the level of competition. They're beating the shit out of everyone they play, but the level of competition is not something that I think can necessarily be extrapolated to thinking towards a playoff game. Should have home field, which is nice, but got to play better. Got to play better on both sides. Well, on offense, the defense literally, I don't think could play better right now. They just have to be playing well.
Certainly.
Hold on. Let's pull up some stats. I screenshotted this so I didn't have to come look for it again, because clearly I'm doing well at that today. Notre Dame's pass defense is first nationally in pass efficiency, first in completion percentage allowed, second in yards per attempt allowed, 7th in interceptions, 3rd in touchdowns allowed. This is without half a season of one of the best defensive backs in college football, mind you. So there we go. Great second.
I'm eager for them. I don't even know if USC is going to give them a test. We'll probably get to that game next. But
I was going to say, we could talk about that right now.
I'm just eager to see when they draw Jackson Dart or someone else in the playoff, how that holds up. So we'll have to see. Only time will tell. Only time will tell.
Listen, champagne problems if I have to worry about going to a home playoff game for Notre Dame. And if they lose, then so be it.
Yeah,
that would be nice. To a home playoff game. I'm going to spend my life savings. It's all good. USC 28, Nebraska 20. Speaking of USC, there was a period in this game that I thought to myself, I don't know that Miller Moss was necessarily the problem.
Yeah, you texted me, and I agreed.
I think it was right after Maiava fumbled. I missed the start of this game. I did not see the pick six. I watched it on highlights, and he had like another play too,
where it was really bad pick six,
where he was like going out of bounds, and he like, I don't know if he was like trying to throw it away or what, and he just like threw it into the middle. I'm like, what are you doing, dude?
I say really bad pick six, but are pick sixes ever good? Probably not.
No, I mean, but some of them where it's like you throw and it bounces off the receiver's hands and then it goes the other way. It's like, okay, whatever. That's not your fault, but
yeah.
However, I do think, and I mean, Woody Marks has been really good all year, so I don't know that this is necessarily fair analysis, but it seems like with Maiava's ability to at least not be like an overt running threat, but be more mobile in the backfield and at least give you like something to think about there, it seems like it opens up that running game a little bit more. Marks ran for 146 yards on 19 carries. That's a season high for him. He had a 34-yard run on the last touchdown drive, which, I mean, this game was already salted away, but it more or less salted the game away. And he's now at 1,000 yards on the season. So that's good. And Maiava was good in this game. I think finished 3 touchdowns, 220 yards, 250 yards, something like that. So, I mean, he was good. Nebraska
4 total TDs. Yeah, 4 total TDs.
Nebraska's got a good defense. And
do they, Ryan?
I mean,
do they?
Good-ish.
What happened to
Good-ish.
this pass rush? 1 sack in this game. They gave up 444 yards.
Yeah, that's not
Marks
great.
ran for the 146. This rush defense is supposed to be elite, right?
It
Running
was
defense.
not in this one. Not in this one.
7.7 yards per carry for Mr. Marks. They did get the interception and a fumble recovery. Flip it to the offense. Raiola was just okay in this one. His second INT, I'm not laying on him. First of all, that was pass interference in the end zone.
Yeah.
At the end of the game. That doesn't mean I'm pining USC fans and saying Nebraska was going to win if they got another shot. No, probably not, but you should at least throw the damn flag. You can clear as day see him yanking the receiver's jersey to prevent him from getting to the ball. So probably should have been a PI call there. So then you look at the yardage comparison, 444 for USC, 310 for Nebraska. Solid rushing performance, if you want to call it, for Johnson and Dowdell. They each got over 50 yards. I just feel like this offense lacks explosive playmakers, which really stings when you have a freshman quarterback. And I feel like this offense relies on Raiola to do everything for them. And if he doesn't play perfect, they're not winning because they don't have skill players anywhere else. I don't think the hype train on Raiola has slowed at all. I still think it's great. I think you just got to put some better talent around him. Also, a reminder, 7 of Nebraska's 20 points came off the pick 6. He had 13 offensive points. You're staring down the barrel of another 5-win season. It's not any easier the next 2 weeks. Hell, it's probably harder. Wisconsin and Iowa. You may be looking at another 5-win season after you started so promising. And you already sold with Maiava. My biggest thing, he had some erratic throws, a little bit inconsistent, but this first time starting, he had the big touchdown late when he needed to seal the game. I'm eager to see more of what he can do. I think his mobility paired with Marks, I think that's going to give Notre Dame a unique challenge at the end of the season. A unique challenge. They got to get through UCLA first next week, which probably won't be an easy task. So we'll see what happens, but good win for USC. You're 1 game away from bowl eligibility. Now you got 2 solid, an elitely tough game at the end of the season, but a solid game next week that you got to win. And Nebraska, I don't know what to say for you, man.
I put Nebraska ... question mark.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. Like, yes, your defense is elite as it can be. It's going to waver some when you play better offenses because college football and the NFL are designed to bias the offense now. That's just the way it's going to be. This is why Ohio State and Georgia went, 47-45 or whatever in a playoff game when they had 2 of the best defenses in the country. Like, defense isn't winning championships anymore. It's how many points can your offense score? So I don't know. I don't know what to say for Nebraska, man. I feel bad for the fans. I feel like they're going to flip when they see another 5-win season potentially. I feel like they're going to be dissatisfied if they win the last 2 games of the season and end with 7.
I don't know, man. So it's 9 straight losses now with the opportunity to clinch a bowl berth, which is obnoxious, ridiculous. I don't know that's I'm sure it's happened at some point before, but I can't actively recall an instance where that has happened. Dude, if they don't make a bowl game, man, there's going to be some very difficult conversations that have to happen in that program this offseason. Because it's one thing. Like, what did they start? They started 5-3 last year, and then lost the last 4. You start 5-1 and lose.
What did they start this year?
5-1.
They haven't won a game in over a month.
They have not won a game since, hold that thought,
Purdue?
No, that was since Rutgers on the 5th of October.
So they haven't won a game in over a month.
They've not
6
won
weeks.
They've not won a game in 6 weeks. Yes, when
because you have the bye week in there. So
had a bye week in there. So it's, I don't know, man. They should beat Wisconsin.
Should they?
I mean, they should.
Not if it's the Wisconsin that just played Oregon last night. Not the defense, at least. Nebraska won't score.
I think that was more Oregon farting around than anything.
Potentially. And I think it was probably more not just farting around. They're exhausted and they're beat up. It's been a long time since their last bye week.
8 straight games. including 3 Midwest road trips.
Yep. Absolutely.
But before we get to that one, Rutgers 31, Maryland 17. Rutgers officially clinches bowl eligibility. It was looking a little dicey there for a second. Athan Kaliakmanis, Clinton.
He's on a tear.
He has continued his rapid ascent through the sport. That might be overselling it a little bit, but he was 20 of 30 in this one.
He's now the projected NFL #1 quarterback in the 2025 draft.
Not a great quarterback year. Why not? Why not Athan? 20 of 30.
I can give you a lot of reasons why.
The first one being he's not that good. But he played very well in this game. 20 of 30 for 238 yards, 2 more touchdowns, not turning the ball over. I think I tweeted it and I should have. Hold on, I can find it real quick. He's the first Rutgers quarterback to throw for 2,000 yards in a season in like 10 years. Athan Kaliakmanis is the first Rutgers quarterback to throw for more than 2,000 yards in a season since Chris Laviano threw for 2,247 yards in 2015. The only other FBS teams that did not eclipse 2,000 yards passing in a season in that span: Army, Navy, Air Force.
Oof.
That's brutal. That's like that's a crappier version of the 4 teams who have not taken a transfer player this year: Army, Navy, Air Force, Clemson. Monangai came back in this one. He went for 95 on the ground. Strong and Miller turning into a nice 1-2 punch there for Rutgers out wide. And Maryland, Clinton, Maryland.
They're chirping, man. They're chirping.
Is it time that we have a Mike Locksley conversation? So they outgained Rutgers in this game, 457 yards to 375.
Yep.
They could not finish drives. In the first half, they missed a field goal, had a touchdown, had a turnover on downs. Started the second half with a touchdown, went 3 and out, threw an interception, turnover on downs, deep in Rutgers territory. At this point, it was 31-17. Turnover on downs again, deep in Rutgers territory, and then ended the game with a run from the 6-yard line that got tackled at the 4, and then the clock ran out. That is their last 3 drives that ended not quite in the red zone, but pretty close to the red zone. Not great, man. That's Billy Edwards was pretty decent in this one. Did have an interception, but threw for 335 yards. Threw the ball 55 times. They spread the ball around. No one had a huge stat line out wide, but I mean, for Maryland, they're now 4-6, and they're in deep danger of missing a bowl game, because we talk about the end of the season for Nebraska. Maryland's got Iowa and Penn State in Happy Valley. That
not getting to a bowl game.
Does not sound like they will be getting to a bowl game.
But this will be their fourth going for a 4th straight bowl win, I believe. I think they've won their last 3.
What?
So I read something today. They have won their last 3 bowl games, Maryland.
Okay.
So they were going for their 4th straight. They're not going to get a chance because they're not going to make
a bowl game.
Game.
Not only will they likely not make a bowl game, but they very well could finish this year 4-8, which would be a unfortunate step back for them.
Yeah. The other thing too, if you want to pile on to, hold on, my dog's going to hack up a lung. Okay, we are good. Anyways, Rutgers had 8 penalties for 80 yards in this game. Like, you held them to 3.8 yards per carry. Monangai did okay, but it wasn't one of his better games. You already counted. I had that part noted too, was the missed field goal and 3 turnovers on downs. You have to be efficient with your drives. You have to score if you're going to win. That's the other thing. Rutgers has now matched their most victories in Big Ten play since joining the league since before 2014. They scored touchdowns on 4 straight drives in this game. So Maryland, you have to go punch for punch at some point. That eliminates the kneel down in the second quarter. We take that out since they didn't try.
Yep.
Monangai could have had a bigger day. He had a 70-yard run called back by a penalty. I don't know, man. I guess stock up Scarlet Knights. Am I buying some Rutgers stock again?
Listen, man,
I just told you on the Pick'em show that I was sending that train out?
this could, depending on how this season ends for Rutgers, it could be a wild, wild swing of a season. The truest of true peaks and valleys, starting with 4 straight wins, followed by 4 straight losses, potentially ending with 4 straight wins. They're on a 2-game winning streak.
Finish 8-4.
Finish with Illinois and Michigan State, certainly 2 winnable games. The Illinois
could be
game
5-4 in the big
in Piscataway as well. So
yeah,
I mean,
Greg Schiano is riding in on a white horse.
Listen. Listen, 2 weeks ago we were all out on.
They
Rutgers.
were dead to us.
We were talking about, do they need to get rid of Greg Schiano? And if they finish 8-4, I mean, that's expectations met, man.
Yeah,
that's expectations.
You know what it
met.
is? He listened to our podcast and he said, "These inside the pylon guys, they don't know shit."
Yeah, Steve probably listened and sent it to him. It's like, Greg, listen to these jabronis talking about you.
Show these fools what's up.
Show these fools what's up. Yes, he did it despite us. You're welcome, Rutgers fans. I mean, they could do it. It wouldn't surprise me. And nothing would surprise me anymore with this team, man.
And then I'm going to pick them next week, and they're going to freaking lose.
They are favored.
How healthy are they? Getting healthy on defense? Is that part of it?
No,
they got that 4-game stretch. They were decimated.
No, I still think they're decimated. Clinton, they gave almost 500 yards in this game.
Well, I mean, that is one thing Maryland does, though, right? Maryland moves the ball. They just can't win and can't score. They moved the ball against Oregon. They had bad turnovers and couldn't finish drives.
Yeah, well, now you're playing a team that can move the ball a little bit and doesn't turn it over as much.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I'll be intrigued to kind of, again, the transitive property doesn't exist in sports, but I'll be intrigued to see what Maryland's offense does against Penn State's defense, just to kind of compare a little bit of how each team looked. So,
well, Clinton,
see that in 2 weeks.
We can do the ultimate transitive property using Purdue as our guide, because they have played Oregon and Ohio State and Penn State and Notre Dame. And per the Purdue transitive property, Notre Dame is the #1 team in the nation. Checkmate.
We know that's not true, though, unfortunately.
Finishing up, Oregon 16, Wisconsin 13. I told you that there was no justification for my pick other than the line stunk, and it was a weird spot for Oregon. 8 straight games since their last bye, including those 2 previous trips over the last 6 weeks out to the Midwest. And they looked it to start, man. They were getting the ball down the field a little bit, but Wisconsin held them to 2 field goals early, and they got another Dylan Gabriel red zone interception. And I mean, Oregon's defense played pretty well in this game, despite no Jordan Birch being present. 3 straight 3-and-outs to start the game for Wisconsin, which might be part of why Phil Longo got fired. Get a field goal drive, you get a punt, you get a late touchdown. And I think kind of the turning point in this one, Clinton, was first drive of the second half for Wisconsin. They score a touchdown, it gets called back for an ineligible man downfield, and they end up having to settle for a field goal. After that drive, they did not record a first down.
Yeah, are you just reading my shit tonight?
Probably.
That's the same thing I had.
I'm in your brain.
Great minds think alike. We'll go with that.
Yeah, something like
that. Yeah, I don't know, man. The biggest thing that baffled me with this, Wisconsin's defense played really well. They made life tough for Dylan Gabriel. A key point that I heard, Tez Johnson's been out, and that has hurt this Oregon offense a lot more than people I think thought it would. Regardless of what you want to say with Evan Stewart, there was so much hype around him at the beginning of the season. I don't think he's even sniffed it.
I would agree. 10 catches today. He was fine.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. The way people were talking about him, it's like the best wide receiver in football this year.
No. I agree. Because he had, if you look at his stats from last year, he just eclipsed what he did last year. And I think he only did that in 7 games with A&M. He had 38 catches for 514 yards and 4 scores last year. In this game, he had 10 catches for 92 yards, which brings his season total up to 47 for 609 yards and 5 touchdowns. So he's basically done in 11 games what he did in half that with A&M last year. Half-ish. I don't remember how many games he ended up playing.
Wisconsin did a good job getting pressure on Gabriel, which other teams we've seen have trouble. Gabriel's small, right? So if you get some pressure in his face, and Wisconsin ran him about 10 yards backwards on one play, and he can't see anything. He can't look down the field if you keep him in the pocket and put pressure on him. If you let him escape out, then yes, he's going to hit some great passes. But he's in the open field. He can see something. If you get in his face, he's not going to beat you, at least down the field. He might hit something short. I don't know. Wisconsin fall to 2-15 in their last 17 games against top 25 teams. They're 0-6
Woof.
in Luke Fickell's 2-year coaching tenure. They've led 3 top 25 opponents at halftime, Ryan. And they were unable to close the deal in any of those games.
It's not great.
They blew halftime leads against USC, Penn State, and Alabama, right? That would be the other one.
I don't.
And then Oregon.
No,
I'm sorry, not Alabama. Sorry, Oregon was the third one.
Yeah.
They carried it into the fourth quarter, though, which was the first of those, and then they blew it in the fourth.
Yep.
They pulled a USC.
They pulled a USC.
They've been outscored in the second half of the USC Penn State game, 49-3.
Not good.
And I knew, I was like, Wisconsin's got to survive the third quarter to make this a chance. But I'm like, they don't have the horses on offense. If Oregon takes the lead, it's over.
Yep.
They're not going to get it done. Outside of what you already talked about for Oregon, they look like a team that needs a break. They're going to get it. Is 1 week enough, depending on which Washington team you get? And is 1 week enough that in 3 weeks, you're playing the Big Ten championship? I don't know. I was most puzzled by Dan Lanning's decision to fake a field goal.
Yeah. So
at the end of the game there.
Okay. So on the one hand, I get it because, did you really think Wisconsin was going to score?
Absolutely no. I was saying on their last 2 drives, like Braden Locke hasn't thrown his interception yet. Bet he's going to throw one here.
So he did. Yeah, I was going to say, hopefully y'all listen to me on the bet the over 0.5 Braden Locke interceptions because that was the second surest bet of the weekend behind Penn State covering.
Yep.
Both happened. No, the one theory I saw on this was it's actually better to be up 3 than 6 in that instance because when coaches get into field goal range, when they only need a field goal to tie the game, they get weird and conservative and stop pushing for a touchdown. Whereas if you're down 6, you need the touchdown and you start being more aggressive and actually calling a competent game plan because coaches are their own worst enemy. They can't. I only need 3 points, so I'm only going to try to play for 3 points. It's the weirdest thing that college football coaches in general do. So that was a theory I saw on that. 1, Wisconsin wasn't going to score anyway, but 2, you could make an argument. I don't necessarily buy it, but you could make an argument that it's better to be up 3 than 6 because it's like this weird reverse psychology where, now we're only going to play for the field goal instead of the touchdown. I don't know.
Do you want an interesting
Not saying I agree with it, but okay. Yes.
Interesting stat on this game before we close out.
Yes.
This was Oregon's lowest point total in a game since Dan Lanning's first game as a head coach, which was a 49-3 loss to Georgia in the 2022 season opener.
They got smoked in that game.
God, that was embarrassing. I was pulling so hard for the Ducks too, and that was about as ugly could be. And then Wisconsin, you just need a damn quarterback. I don't know what you got. Again, you got robbed. Who knows what this team could have been with TVD, especially if it was the good TVD. I don't know what waits in the wings, but you guys got to find something. I don't know what Fickell's going to try to do with the new OC here. Are we going to go back to old-fashioned Wisconsin? Or are we still going to try to throw the ball? The problem with firing the OC, and you've been trying for 2 years to build towards the Dairy Raid offense, is now you've started to accumulate players who fit that more than wanting to go back to your traditional Wisconsin. I don't know, man. I'm at a loss with Wisconsin. I love Fickell, but maybe the first mistake was trying to completely reinvent the offense as a Wisconsin football team.
Yeah, it's so hard to know what would have, the alternate reality where Tyler Van Dyke doesn't get hurt this year to see what would happen, I think would be a fascinating wormhole to fall into because he's been aggressive trying to remake the quarterback room. Before his first year, they took 4 quarterback transfers. Because there's Mordecai, Nick Evers from Oklahoma, and I think they had one more in there. And I don't remember who it is off the top of my head. And obviously that did not work out. And I thought Mordecai was going to be really good at Wisconsin, and he was not. And then Van Dyke comes in, and not that he was fantastic in their first 2 games, but then he hurts the first drive against Alabama. And I think we have a plethora of evidence now that Braden Locke is not a Big Ten quarterback.
Got to do something different in the offseason.
No offense to the kid,
Have to.
but you can't, that's just a completely non-functional offense in this game. If you have competent quarterback play, you probably win this game.
Yep. Absolutely.
You didn't have a first down for almost the entire second half. That's bad.
Yep.
I watched the team
Very
not have a first down for almost the entire first half. It was bad. But then they scored 28 points. Good. You get one more touchdown, you win the game. You get one more touchdown, you win the game. So will be a fascinating offseason in Wisconsin. And this is not the time to have is Luke Fickell on the hot seat conversation. But I feel like if they stink again next year,
absolutely will be.
Very well could be.
He'll be back to being a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, if they're 6-6 again. But
hey, the Cincinnati Bengals could use one. So I don't know.
We'll find out.
Hey, I kept my facial expressions of disgust to a minimum during this 24-6 first half. So you should be proud of me because internally I'm fuming.
That's brutal. That's so bad.
You have one of the most high-powered offenses in football, at least yardage-wise. Burrow is putting up MVP caliber stats, and you're about to be 4-7. Your defense is worse than Swiss cheese. It has more holes than Swiss cheese.
How bad of a coach was Brandon Staley? Because
he's an idiot.
Did they other than getting a franchise offensive tackle in the draft? Did they really do anything?
No.
Get anyone in the offseason?
They were so much behind in the cap. They thought they were gonna have to cut a bunch of guys to be able to get to the league. Whatever. I'm blanking on words. I'm too pissed off. Yeah, they were like 46 million over the cap or something. I don't know what it was. It was something steep. It was almost Saints-esque because the Saints are always deep in the cap for some reason for a team that doesn't win anymore. But I don't know, man.
Here they are. What are they?
Harbaugh's just spiting another one of my teams. That's what it is.
They're 6-3 now. What have they? They've not allowed more than 20 points in a game yet this season.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
They have a good defense. They bring the D.
I wonder if Connor Stallions followed Jesse Minter there?
I don't think he did. He's too busy. He was trying to coach Bryce Underwood in the playoffs. It didn't work. He offered him the vacuum business, I heard, and he said, "No, thank you. I don't want that a part of my NIL deal."
Brother, man, you don't even have to offer the vacuum business. You just have to point to what happened in Baton Rouge this weekend and be like, "You sure you want to go play for that?"
Yep. And again, I know we're not an NFL podcast, but how about J.K. Dobbins this year, man? Coming back from those multi-year injuries that tore him, he's having a great season. I'm really happy for him. Pains me to see him score against the Bengals, but he's on my fantasy teams, so good for JK. Glad he's healthy. Kid deserves the world.
And on that note, we will bid you adieu for the evening. We'll be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. to talk playoffs.
With Ryan's playoff sound that you all love.
Sounds. I will not play it again tonight. Yeah, we'll redo our rankings, and that's just going to be kind of our Monday thing for the rest of the regular season. Got a couple more weeks, man. 2 more weeks. Sad.
2 more weeks.
Very sad.
And Clinton, this guy will be at the Big Ten Championship. I'm excited.
Watching Indiana play Oregon. You heard it here first.
It's okay, man. I'm full bore Hoosiers on that one. If that happens, if Indiana can prove themselves and beat Ohio State, I think everybody's going to back off on Indiana. Like, wow, this team is actually really good.
I mean, they should. If they at that point, if you're not backing, if they beat Ohio State and you're still saying that they stink, then you're just being.
We need to talk about Kirby Smart and his whiny ass tomorrow night on the playoff episode. I'm tired of hearing the SEC cry. Anyways, let's be done for the night.
All right. We'll see y'all tomorrow night. Thanks for tuning in.
See ya. Don't need to go down that rabbit hole tonight.
No, we can save that for tomorrow.
Such a fucking crying pussy.